Despite
Fox
this
lies.
guy,
Fox lies.
do you have an opinion other than
Fox
that?
lies.
Any
Lies.
that, sir? No,
Fox
just
lies.
that's the only
Fox
two words
lies.
you know. Very good.
All right, Fox News, what do you got next?
All right, the holidays can get pretty stressful, as we all know, especially in this final week before Christmas. But a new study shows that prayer has the power to ease your mind.
Fox News religion contributor Father Jonathan Morris is here.
Good
He will
morning.
decide the Grinches versus the Griswolds later.
Imagine the neighbor with no lights. They in that neighborhood must feel so bad.
You get egged
right?
in that neighborhood and teepeed and everything.
All right, just so you know, basically the story before this one that they're going into in this clip, they were talking about a whole neighborhood where everyone had lights up in their houses for Christmas, and they were saying, imagining being the one that didn't have any lights, your house would get egged and teepeed, because that's what good Christians do for Christmas. You got to celebrate Jesus, and if you don't want to, we're gonna egg your house and teepee you and tar and feather and who knows what the fuck next.
So talk about this study. It turns out that prayer is beneficial in many ways.
This researcher took a whole pretty large group of people who had been in violent relationships and studied the way in which prayer affected the state of their mind. And he showed with a lot of clarity that it is a very positive benefit to them.
You see, when people are in violent relationships, which is what the study was conducted, the people that were in the study were in violent relationships. You see, what benefits them is prayer. You know, your fucking husband comes home, drinks a fucking case of beer, and pops you in the face. The most beneficial thing you can do is pray.
Now, it's interesting, at the end of his study, he makes this suggestion, which I think is kind of silly, but he says, but maybe for a non-religious person, maybe they don't believe in God, they could just have an imaginary friend, like, say, for example, a celebrity that they could just speak to.
And the point is, because, I mean, I guess what they found is that you need an outlet. You need some sort of outlet to tell your troubles to.
And I think there are, Allison, psychological benefits to what is prayer? It's conversing with God. It's telling God the things that are most important in your life. Talking to Him about the real life stuff that's going on. But there's a big difference if God exists or doesn't exist. In other words, yes, psychological benefits, but if God really does exist, there's going to be feedback. There's going to be intervention.
There it is, plain and simple. Father Jonathan just explained it to you. You see, if God does exist and you pray to Him, there will be feedback. There will be intervention. So if you pray and there is no feedback or intervention, God doesn't exist. That fucking simple. So, God, if you're real, please crash my computer so I stop blaspheming against you. Please. Anytime. Waiting. Guess God isn't real.
But Father,
there
is some correlation between prayer and health, right? I mean, haven't they found people who pray are healthier in general?
Yes, exactly. And that's what this study is really saying. It's saying that there really are positive benefits. But I think we have to look at it as from a medical, psychological point of view. All the studies say that it's helpful. Why? Because you're unloading on somebody else who is worthy of trust, who's not going to retaliate against you. But that's one thing. But if God exists, then it's a whole other level of value to prayer. That there's actually going to be feedback, that there's going to be intervention, that there's going to be divine assistance. Of course, these studies aren't going to show that, but I think that's also why prayer is powerful.
No, it makes sense. I mean, think about bottling all this stuff up. It's just going to have negative implications on your mental health.
And
so
I don't think it's very healthy to have an imaginary friend. I think let's just be very clear about that.
It cracks me up that this Father Jonathan is sitting there talking about how God is either real or He isn't, and the benefits of prayer, whether He is real or He isn't, and the divine assistance that you get, and da-da-da-da-da, when you can obviously tell that most people that pray for things don't get them. So he's basically saying, if you don't get what you're praying for, you need to stop believing in God, and you might as well be praying to some celebrity. I choose Matt Damon. Matt Damon, my life is shit. My hemorrhoids are flaring up like a motherfucker. Please take care of them, Matt Damon. And that's supposed to psychologically make me a healthier person, I guess. But it's not very healthy if you keep asking for shit for some imaginary friend that Father Jonathan doesn't think is a healthy thing to have. that isn't God if God isn't real? It just doesn't make any motherfucking sense. But then again, none of the shit that this motherfucker says makes any sense.
And I don't think it's very healthy to have an imaginary friend. I think let's just be very clear about this.
Are you right? I mean, are you being serious? Because if you have an imaginary friend, you can also unload on.
I know, but if you have an imaginary friend, there's something wrong with you.
I agree. If you have an imaginary friend, there is something wrong with you. The only problem is you don't think that you have an imaginary friend. You think you have a real friend in your imagination. Isn't it all fucking so much fun?
If you have an imaginary friend, there's something wrong with you.
Why you gotta pick on me?
Well, let's not talk about this on air, Dave.
Father, what if this is our imaginary friend? Would that be all right? Is that...
Yeah, you bring him with you,
Lil
take him around
Frosty
with
here
you.
is a good buddy.
And that guy's not imaginary. He's real.
I like Father John trying to put a good spin on it. Okay, Eric, that is fine. It'll work.
I didn't see that coming, Father. Thank you very much.
Real. Imaginary is, there's something wrong. You've got, you know.
That was an interesting spin.
Thank you,
Coming
Father
up.
John.
Okay.
And for the final clip, we'll make it short and sweet. And I don't even think I have anything to say about this. It's that obvious.
Dr. Leahy, I want to begin by asking, do you see some similarities between the Jimmy Carter era and what's happening now that was the basis for the moral majority being formed?
Very definitely, because Jimmy Carter didn't seem to know what was going on or what to do to solve the problem. Our present president doesn't seem to get it. He doesn't understand that some of the things he's introducing that many of us call raw socialism. It's a different name, but it's essentially government control and government domination of everything. And he sees that as a panacea, but instead it's going to work against our country and bring us closer to the apocalypse.
If you have an imaginary friend, there's something wrong with you.
Are we now living in the end times from your perspective?
Very definitely, Governor.
If you have an imaginary friend, there's something wrong with you.
Cockpuss out.